She stared at the screen, heat thundering in her temples despite the Florida sun's golden drift spilling calmly over her desk. Another message blinked into view. Funny, flirty, the kind that curled through her chest like smoke, half intoxicating, half suffocating. The sender, the lover she'd never touched, whose voice she craved nightly, whose secrets poured out between jokes and midnight confessions. And always in the background, Lauren, best friend, confidant, the savvy linchpin who'd first introduced them. This day felt no different, except somewhere deep inside, a itch began to persist. Lauren coaxed, "He really likes you, don't screw this up." But the tone carried a sharp edge, one she'd glossed over for years with laughter and trust. Now the edge pricked at her heart. Was it jealousy? Or something colder possession masked as warmth? She'd moved to Florida for a new beginning, feeling the rough scrape of fresh sand between her toes, new air in her lungs, wanting the world to be a little brighter. Lauren was sunshine, unfailingly loyal, cradling all her loneliness. And when she'd confessed the ache for companionship, Lauren orchestrated the miracle. A carefully crafted introduction to Jack. Witty, attentive, miles away, but constantly present. Her breath caught as Jack wrote, "I need you. No one else gets me." The words felt sacred, yet strains curled beneath them. Desperate expectation, an odd pressure to reply instantly, then guilt trickling in when she slipped out for work, leaving messages unread. Lauren would text, rapid fire, "He's spiraling. You're all he's got. Fix this, please." Hunched at her work computer, she forced herself through the day's tasks while Jack peppered her phone emoji-laced affection, biting questions if she was too slow, and hour after hour, Lauren mediating. "You can save him. Keep trying. Don't let go." It was devotion bent until she barely noticed her own foundation trembling. She stayed up late, neglected reports, let deadlines blur. There were Saturdays when the friends sprawled on Lauren's porch, sticky with humidity, laughter bubbling. But even there, a shift rippled, a shift in Lauren's gaze, calculating, the lines around her mouth compressing when texts chimed. The air, no longer gentle, pressed her to please, to choose, to prove that their friendship was irreplaceable. A thunderstorm traced blue shadows across the window, rumbling in her ears while she scrolled through the archives of her ruined days. Jobless for weeks now, the hours had grown elastic, stretched thin and sharp with fear. She moved robotically, legs numb, heart wound tight with the shock of betrayal. A betrayal that Lauren's smile could no longer disguise, that Jack's confessions only deepened. Each digital trace, each snippet of conversation, was another heartbeat in the wall of evidence she built. She started, trembling, at the oldest messages, the harmless banter, the slow uncoiling of trust. Lauren had been there in every thread, nudging, coaxing, urging her to reply faster, give more, surrender deeper. Jack's requests for financial help sat innocently at first, just a loan, a small deposit to tide him over, but soon bloomed into demands, layered in guilt and desperation. And always, Lauren smoothing the way, whispering reassurance so sweet it tasted bitter against her teeth. She cataloged their exchanges methodically, fingers cold. Screenshots of Jack's urgent, banking instructions. "It's just until payday. You're all I have." She flinched at her own naive assurance in the replies. The way she'd offered up her savings with trembling trust, believing the bonds of friendship would hold her up. Lauren's role unraveled as the texts piled up. Each time she hesitated or refused, Lauren interceded. "Think how much he needs you. He's falling apart. He'd do it for you." Later, the tone sharpened. "You're being selfish. You must care more about money than people." Arguments blurred into pleas, then into silent, icy punishment when she paused, when she wondered if she was being used. Bank statements revealed the ugly choreography. Hundreds wired out, the pattern unmistakable. Each loss lined up with a fevered late-night exchange, Lauren feeding her justifications like poison disguised as honey. Sometimes, Lauren's own account flashed up too. A joint dinner paid for, a refund never processed, always just out of reach. The story unfolded. Jack's needs, Lauren's manipulation, and her own steady unraveling. She printed it all, the screenshots, the ledgers, the web of social media posts, a photo from Lauren's Instagram. Lauren and Jack, together on a beach, arms flung around each other, captioned "Unstoppable Duo." She stared, gut twisted, remembering the night Lauren, gale force anger and shame, churned in her stomach as she took cautious breaths, determined not to drown in the silence that followed her discoveries. She stacked the evidence carefully. Each screenshot like a brick in the wall, she was finally brave enough to build. Lauren's face floated behind her eyelids, not the old sunlight smile, but the hard, defensive mask she now recognized. This wasn't just about what was stolen. It was about all the women and men who'd stumble next, all the loneliness weaponized for profit and power. She needed more than justice for herself. She needed to stop the cycle. The first time she walked into the church basement where the advocacy group met, her palms sweated through her sleeves. Rows of faces, hopeful and haunted, some anxious, some fierce, looked up as she signed in. A retired cop led the circle, gray mustache twitching as he welcomed her. They didn't need details, not yet. Their voices were heavy with tales like hers, clever scams and bruised trust, bank accounts hollowed by liars with pretty words. She saw the shock soften as she talked, as she described Lauren's role, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the sick choreography that drew her deeper. Even when she begged for an exit, by the end, a few were quietly crying. One took her hand and squeezed, saying, "You can save someone else, you know." That's how the healing starts. She started collecting stories, reaching out through anonymous forums. Each email that arrived prickled her skin with dread. Phone screens and paper trails littered her kitchen table, bright with sticky notes and legal pads scrawled with timelines and names. Advocacy had become her backbone, something she could stand up straight inside, something with heft and purpose. She was no longer just a victim whispering her story into sympathetic ears. Now every detail was fuel, every setback a stepping stone. She wore her exhaustion like armor as she waded through State House corridors, the air sharp with coffee and anticipation. Lobbyists milled, volunteers pressed buttons. The group braced around her in a loose circle. They all had stories. She was just the one willing to carry them forward. She'd met Senator Delgado in a windowless office, lined with binders, her hands shaking until she realized how bored his assistant was, and how interested he looked when she opened her folder. "These are real cases," she said, sliding screenshots and ledgers across the desk. "People aren't just losing money, they're losing themselves." He nodded, jaw tight. "Show me how it works. Tell me where the system fails." Work through long afternoons, untangling what recourse there was for scam victims, and how easy it was for perpetrators to vanish. Florida sunshine laws helped. Her email chain, Lauren's social posts, and Jat's web of bank transfers built a narrative that felt almost physical in its clarity. The advocacy group's legal expert translated pain into policy language, making her humiliation a force for transformation. At public hearings, she watched lawmakers wince grimace at testimony. Some rolled their eyes, but enough were moved that momentum picked up, then roared into motion. She justified under oath, retelling the way Lauren pressed, Jack pleaded, the way the law looked the other way after the money disappeared. Day after day, more came forward, voices trembling in solidarity. The draft bill became a beacon, not just prosecution for scammers, but mandatory education programs for banks, digital platforms, and schools, enhanced reporting mechanisms, victim restitution funds. "We're building a net," Delgado told her late one night, as thunder again pressed its palm against the windows, "so nobody falls quite so far." Opponents barked about cost, about privacy and personal responsibility. "People should know better," one grumbled, but she countered with faces, with stories, with endurance scraped raw and shining through. The day the bill passed, she watched from the gallery as legislators cast their votes, faces solemn under fluorescent light, her heart